Today is a new day to start again. Take each moment one by one and do the best you can. Yesterday doesn't matter, it only serves as a ladder. Tomorrow isn't guaranteed, so make your plans accordingly. Today is a new day to start again. Take each moment one by one and do the best you can. Grand Rising, today is a new day to start again. It is 5/10/2025. Well, we're in for it. I wrote 12 pages out. And if you don't like long videos, I tend to get into conjecture, and I'm pretty sure I go all over the place, but I really have one kind of main underlying point here. So let's see if I can stay on it. It's taken me a minute to get here, but I'm starting to see positive things happening around me in my own personal life. I've been feeling more fulfilled. I'm in a better environment. I really do truly feel like following the way, which is what I've been trying to do, is starting to smooth itself out a little bit for David, which is helpful because struggle is, we talked about that I got together in a men's group, the first men's group I've ever been in, about a week ago, and the subject of the men's group was struggle and stress, and my basic contention was struggle was a made-up word, but you could call struggle just difficulties, I guess. And sometimes it seems like when you're going through growth, that's when you're experiencing the most difficulties. And they just kind of coincide together. Not sure where I was going with that. But stress is a real thing. Stress is probably the biggest killer in our life, of our life. So I could have bet that the Pacers were going to get destroyed, to be a big segue guy here into the NBA, the National Basketball Association. I live in Indiana, and basketball is pretty big to us here in Indiana. I have a problem with all professional sports, and I probably shouldn't even be putting my intent into it. It's probably all orchestrated, and I'm probably just, I keep saying probably. I could get into probably. I'm all about words, and then I talk on these videos for really long, drawn-out conversations, basically with myself, because not very many people watch these. All right, have I got everybody out of the way now so I can talk about what I want to talk about? Because I do get into some stuff here. So the Pacers, are the Indiana Pacers, they're in the second round of the playoffs, and they won the first two games on the opponent's floor. They're playing the Cleveland Cavaliers. We're going to get into a little Pacer talk here real quick. And they just got manhandled. I thought it might happen. In fact, that was my biggest hunch. But they did not look good. I don't want to be overreacting here, but the eye test is they were exposed. But there's always these overreactions. Next game is pretty huge. They need to at least not get destroyed and keep everybody healthy would be good too. The big thing is they're going to have to play two teams that are probably better than the team they're currently playing if everybody stays healthy down the stretch. So not only, so it was very advantageous to the Pacers that they jumped out to an 0-2 lead or a 2-0 lead on the opponent's floor, because if they get this series closed out before it becomes really physical, we get into physicality later, it's a huge advantage. It was a huge advantage. And now it's a series, because if they lose this next game, it goes back to the home court advantage, and we're in trouble. And all for naught to win the first few games. And I've seen that happen before. So this next game is really huge, not to put too much in it. We're at 5 minutes. This is going to be my longest video because I do get into a lot of stuff here. So Pacers stuff is done. Let's move on. The other thing that happened, the reason why I started this with my life has been doing really well, is some eventful things happened yesterday. It was really strange outside of my personal life. The Pacers got destroyed. And then I saw on YouTube, there was a live on modern day debates between a couple of they like to call themselves lads from Aether Cosmology. So I want to talk that up real quick first so I don't taint the well. They are very influential in my development, I must say, because they've done so much research. They're very articulate. They have a particular kind of wit to them, which I really identify with. It's very slow and methodical. And if you already have a closed mind to their subject matter, you're going to be turned off right from the beginning. But I really dig it. And I probably should have been more involved with them as they've been going along, because they put so much effort. But I just went my own way because I'm not really that technical. Once I start to see things and I figured things out in my head logically, it no longer really mattered to me anymore, because I had already kind of figured out that it didn't really matter either way. So let me get into what I'm trying to talk about now. So this debate came on and it was live. So it's two of their main guys, and Space Audits and St. Pierre Paul, I believe is his name. I don't want to missay his name. I know him really well, but he's got, maybe he should come up with a better handle. Anyways, they both are, they're very smart, and they went through and they started out by just basically investigating old experiments and experimental data and basically picking apart with the scientific method. It seems like that's kind of what they did. And they went through the historicity, a little bit of like the folklore of these experiments and how they became. And when you look at that, it should be alarming to somebody that has any kind of logical sense, and at least be something that you take into account. But it's funny how many of the people that get into this conversation, they smear that over. But that's kind of where they started. But then they started to get into the actual current data of what we're using in our GPS system and their understanding of the planes. I don't want to get too deep into that either. They're way better at than I am. So if you want to learn about kind of where some of the ideas that I relate to that have led me to where I am, if you want to get into any of that, it's very long-winded as well, but they have a lot of stuff on their Aether Cosmology. I think that's the best source I could say, or Space Audits, or St. Pierre Paul. There's some others too that are involved with Aether Cosmology. Anyways, and Aether is a whole thing too. I don't even know that I agree with Aether. That's where I think I sway from them sometimes. I'm not sure that I mean, not that I disagree with Aether. I just think it's a label that I truly don't think they have a great understanding, nor do I, nor does anybody. And we have this correlation of this effect of this 15 mile an hour per drift. But I'll get into what I try to talk about later. This is really going to be a long video. But I think I'm going to just do this because this has been lingering a little bit anyways, and I have probably my least amount of viewership right now that I've ever had, so I might as well get this out, and maybe nobody will watch it. Socrates is who I really do resonate probably the most with. In my journey, I think I dig Socrates the most. And what I would say is he wouldn't debate. He was so far. I mean, in my interpretation of Socrates, this whole debate thing would just be, he wouldn't even be close to that. Debate is not ancient. That's the thing too. They try to make this idea that our like founding fathers, it was all a debate and all that. That's such a lie, man. The ego is very powerful. It almost seems like a sickness, and you can observe it growing. As I've learned, and I'm putting a label of ego on something that is probably not the same as what you're hearing, so I should probably articulate it better, but I don't want to. It takes too much time. I guess ego would be what I would say is your physicality in this world, and I believe that there's a soul that is really what we're trying to the soul is what you know you've done. Your ego is what you show everybody you've done, is basically the difference. And when you see somebody becoming more and more physical about how good they are, or what are strong, confident, it almost seems like a sickness even when it's doing something really good. And it's easy to predict, but it's also very blinding to people around it. You tend to look at the shiny thing and you forget about everything else that's around. That's not, because it's so blinding. I don't know. I've just lost everybody again. The big thing about this all is it's about optics. But what I would say is the bigger the ego, the harder it is to see, even those with keen eyes. So even people that are really good at looking, if the light is too bright, if the ego is too large, it's hard to see through it. I'm trying to get there, but I don't think I did. I didn't land that one very well. So I have a line here. Let's move on. Optics. Can I kill my whole thing here? I'm going to get into this. Why not? There was a flat earth debate last night. I'm going to say the words. Modern day debates. If you haven't followed the flat earth debate, recently there's been quite a bit of drama. I can catch you up pretty quick. First, I want to give my interpretation of this as a full disclaimer in the beginning. The earth is not flat, for sure. Flat is not even a shape. So the earth cannot be defined as flat. It's not. Case closed. You win. I think we're done. Should I just end the video? No, I got a lot more to say. I'm not a flat earther. Honestly, the name should be shunned as illogical. I'm not a flat earther because the earth ain't flat. Kind of like a spinning water ball falling through space and time through the warping of light's speed. Okay, so here's what I want to try to explain. The heliocentric model is optical. It's an optical description of our terrestrial. To this day, there is no physics verifying the optics other than our space program. The satellites are also optically verified, and so is the, I'll get into this in a little bit. I tie that up later. So just stay with me. I think I have a whole thing here. So the debate, the core, the Earth's core of the contention is optical versus physical verification. Astrophysics, the theories of the core versus physics, physicality. And then you have mathematics is descriptive. And what is really important here is mathematics is not logic, it's calculation. They are not the same. Pretty sure I've lost everyone because most people really haven't taken the time to investigate the core, the iron core. Optics versus physicality. We landed on the moon! At the center of this is the American flag on the moon on television. I don't think anybody really understands that. That is really it. And then I'll kind of get into that, but that is it. The light is not physical, it is optical. In my opinion, light is not physical, it's optical. It is an optical observation. Light is not fire. Fire emits light. Fire is caused from lensing of light and earth with air. What struck me as ironic yesterday was there was the whole Antarctica thing. It's called the Final Experiment, where two of the biggest flat earthers, if you want, they labeled themselves as flat earthers. They went down, they got a free trip down to Antarctica. They went down to southern Chile to, I can't ever say this right, Punta Arenas or something like that. It's down by Tierra del Fuego, which is where they told me in second grade that we should go if there's a nuclear war. But I don't know. It's down there in the south. The contention of most people that have intrigue into this conversation is that north is a field, south is the opposite of wherever north is. And there's a lot of imagery, video imagery of, I don't know, I don't want to get deeper into that than it is. I think I got enough space here to do this. At least I got a time limit now. My phone's going dead. It's at 20%. I'm at 20%. No, I'm at 70 and I'm getting stronger. All right, so what struck me as ironic with the whole thing is we have these two flat earthers that go down into this final experiment, and I think I want to try to speed this up a little bit. But optically, they both have a very effective skill set. Okay, so I really went off. Make sure my number scheme was really bad too. Let's see if I've done this side. We landed on the moon. All right, cool. So the debate, I'm kind of correlating between two different things. So the debate last night was between two lads that are from Aether Cosmology. And that's kind of what I was trying to prep earlier. What I'm alluding to now is one of the big central things in this drama of the flat earth since 2025 began. It's the final experiment is what they called it, was this observation that they did. So it's not an experiment, it's an observation, and it's not final. It really had no relevance. It was just basically collaboration of data that they'd already thought to be true in a place that is still under contention. But for the people that went there, they basically lined themselves up under a false dichotomy, false premise, which was illogical and something that they should not have done in the first place. And they both were smart. One of them ended up, so basically they were the two most articulate, biggest names in flat earth on the flat earth side. And there weren't very many that were vocal and out there about it, that were willing to put themselves on the line and be out in public, in a public setting, that have made any kind of headway with it, that actually had a following behind them. So they went down into this experiment to see a 24-hour sun. I don't want to get deep into what it was, of an observation that basically showed that this map that they were attributing, because that's what everybody always asks, where's your flat earth map? And you get pinned into this idea that it's this thing. What happened was they went down under false premises to collaborate something that was outside of the parameters of this map, which really doesn't represent what they were trying to say in the first place, except at least one of them. It's hard to explain this because it's very, it's ridiculous. They shouldn't have went, is what the problem is. But the problem is the one that was preaching logic so much is the one that went. And he was our biggest star, Whitsitt. I'll say his name. I guess I haven't even said his name. So there was Whitsitt and Jeranism. They went to this Antarctica thing with a guy named McToon, who was also, he's somebody that actually was a proponent of the globe Earth and was running around with social justice on his side, that he's trying to save the world from these two clowns that were saying that the Earth is something that everyone else says is not. And it's really an idea of mental health too, I think, and all that jazz. The whole thing is kind of stupid. My problem is that, like, Socrates would have never done that shit. And I think that's how people should be trying to treat this. You shouldn't be, it's not anyone's responsibility to explain to anyone what is going on here, especially in a world of these lies that we're all living in. Why is it anyone's responsibility? Figure it out. And if you've got it figured out, you don't have to explain it to anybody. It's pretty easy to keep moving forward. And the way you figure it out is that we really don't know. Just to give you an idea of where we're getting to at the end of this. Following the way is really on faith. So basically both of these guys went down. They observed a 24-hour sun in Antarctica, what they call Antarctica, at the South Pole, even though they don't really have verification of a pole. But they're there. They make this optical observation of the sun going around their head, which is absolutely impossible according to when it is and where the model would be, according to this map that they have as a representation. So they saw something that basically disavows this map. So now these two Aether Cosmology boys, lads is what they like to call themselves, are still out here trying to explain to people that this is all, a map is basically an optical observation, because that's how they get the points of these maps, especially that one. But they don't really have, they don't give a physical representation of that. And so they're having to defend against an observation. This guy comes back with all this ego McToon, who, if you watch this debate, if that's what you want to call it, whatever it is, it was a clown show is what it was. He, to me, looks evil, if you want to call a label evil. I mean, he looks disgusting. And so does McToon, or this other guy's named Globy McGlobeface. First of all, why would you even interact yourselves in a conversation with either of those two clown names? McToon is a clown name. Globy McGlobeface is a clown name. I don't talk with clowns. Why are you talking with clowns? Not to really hurt these guys, but don't put yourself in that position. But if you are, you better be gunned and ready. You better have some clown face to play with them. You have to have a, and not that Whitsett's got a clown face, but he's really good at articulating with the clowns and knowing how to but even him, you're outgunned. It's the wrong arena. We shouldn't be in it. That's what Socrates did, and that's what we should probably be doing. Not to just keep driving this back home to that. There's a time and place for everything. So let me get back into this. The problem is that we have these two guys trying to articulate, and then they're getting shown. But what I want to say is, I get into it. I preach them back up, because what I saw through that, even though it was so ugly, was these two gentlemen standing in there and taking it and doing their best they can without getting too rattled against two clowns. They were obviously clowns. There's easy to see, even though optically two guys are not exactly optically appealing, I guess is the best way to say it without trying to be offensive to it. They are beautiful. I think that they I don't want to get into personal things, but there's some physicality tics that happen that people have that they can't control just because of, that's how their body is. But that doesn't affect it just affects their delivery. And it makes it more, but that makes it more commendable that he's willing to put himself out into the fire of that. And what was really funny is they have all these people that are saying these negative things about him, and the moderator, if you want to call him a moderator of the modern day debate, the whole thing's a joke. But he was basically like one of the two guys that are flat earthers are taking a lot of abuse, and they're like trying to say, if you're going to make abusive comments to us, at least give a bunch of money to it. Don't give crappy little tips. And then the moderator stepped in and was like, why would you want to encourage them to say bad things about you? Well, first of all, they don't care because they're on truth. If you understood that, then you would understand what their point was, but you would never will, because you're not somebody that's ever going to take the time, because your ego is way too big. But your misunderstanding of what they were doing there is part of the problem. And if anybody that's watching that can't see that, you have to see it all the way at the very end. But I didn't watch the whole thing because it was so ugly. But the few times that you do see it, you see little things like that. You're just like, you shouldn't even be interacting with this person. He's just not even close to you. So he's never going to understand. So then I had a big line here where I was like, the biggest problem with most people is they hear this Obama, who said clearly, President Obama, when he comes out and he's like, we don't have time for a meeting of the Flat Earth Society. And that has stuck. That was a big moment. Because first of all, the Flat Earth Society in itself, everyone says that's on the Flat Earth side, that it's operatives. We're too busy recruiting for Space Force here, especially with the Trump thing, Elon Musk going on. We're getting some stuff going, boys and girls. Okay, back to optics. So you have these two clowns that are pretty, that have, I mean, I wouldn't say McToon's pretty, but Globey McGlobeface is a handsome man. McToon is just kind of whatever you want to call it, benign, if you want to call it whatever he's something. I would not want to be. There was another guy that's part of the Flat Earth. I might as well prop up everybody. Flat Earth Dave basically was like, nah, on this Antarctica trip, which is what Witsit should have done as well. But Flat Earth Dave was like, I'm not doing anything with McToon, because he shook McToon's hand and was like, yuck. And I kind of get that, because I don't really care. I've seen him do so many underhanded things with people and intellectual, like, where he's obviously understands what he's doing. He's not a good person from what I can see from it. He's a clown. His name's McToon. Don't talk to him. He's irrelevant. Anyways, he sounds very good, but watch that debate, really. You can just watch McToon and then try to be intellectually honest. And then watch McGlobeface. That's the best thing to do. If you really are in this, try not to watch the boys, because they're the lads. I think that's what they like to be called, because that's commendable, though, to watch them and how they try to work their way through it. And then there was a whole part where they finally gave Space Audits the opportunity, who didn't get a ton of time, because he did try to give St. Pierre a lot of opportunity to not really redeem himself, but to basically get his point across, because he was getting stuffled so much, and he's obviously knows what he's trying to drive home, and he was trying to give him the opportunity to do it, like a good teammate would do. But and he didn't want to step over him, so he's trying to just interject. So he finally gets the opportunity to go back into what he was trying to say, and he's got a screen up, and they were saying that the screen wasn't up, but it was up. And I think that they knew it. So I was watching that happen in real time on Modern Day Debate, where he was beginning to Space Audits was finally getting an opportunity to be able to present something again, to go back what he was trying to drive point. His original only point that he had in the entire thing was showing that this is how we see through optics, and this is what it is, reality, and the differential between the two of them. Regardless of where you're at or what you're standing on, there's only so far you can see optically. And there's a dome optically. Gosh, that's not a globe. And he finally got it up on the screen. He had these textbooks. He was trying to show that this is actually what they teach. And he's like, look. And they were like, it's not on the screen, but it was. And so he never even got to drive home the point. That was really the only moment that would have been beneficial, but the two clowns wouldn't have even watched it. And they knew, I think, that the screen was up. And they made it they did it on purpose. So if you're watching that should really make you wonder, what is going on? Why is this even happening? But the two lads, in my opinion, shouldn't have even been in that spot. They're beyond and above that. They were being questioned of like what they have done. And these two guys, if you watch any video evidence of it at all, have devoted like pretty much everything they have into this. And if nothing else, they've drawn light to a lot of things. They have definitely put forth effort in understanding of these two different planal observations of the terrestrial and the ecliptic, which is optical. It's so crazy. And they just shouldn't be in that. It's just, so then I got into what we're using to determine physical phenomenon down here is laser and light.